Have you ever thought to yourself, it's Tuesday, another perfect day to have a human hamburger? No? Well, say hello to Joe Metheny, the serial killer who sold human hamburgers to unsuspecting customers. Stick around as we look into what started his killings, why he killed and served people as his hamburgers, and how he got caught. But before we jump in, please remember to like, subscribe, and make sure that the notification bell is turned on for more in-depth real crime sagas like this. With that, let's get started. Anyone interested in serial killer psychology should be well acquainted with the classic 1991 movie, The Silence of the Lambs. If you've seen this movie, you're probably familiar with Hannibal Lecter's quote, "A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti." Metheny's attorneys claimed that he was neglected as a child, which caused him to become depressed, that his father was an alcoholic who died in a car accident around the time Metheny was 6, and that his mother neglected her 6 children while working double shifts outside the home. Metheny stated that his parents frequently placed him in foster-like arrangements with other families. Metheny lied that his mother had died. His mother claimed that while they were poor and she needed to work hard as a barmaid, waitress, and food truck driver, she had supplied her children with a normal family life, and that the kids had never gone hungry or been placed in the homes of other families, as Metheny had claimed. Metheny, she said, was an above-average student who was always polite and not mean as a child. She stated that he was intelligent and had a happy childhood. It was solely his fault that he was ignored. It was a nice place to live. Metheny enlisted in the U.S. Army at the age of 18 in 1973. His mother claimed that he served in Germany, but he claimed he served in Vietnam and became addicted to drugs while serving on an artillery there. Metheny's mother stated that she had no memory of him serving in Vietnam, and the details of his service were reported in the press as unverified. By that point, the United States' involvement in Vietnam had come to an end. Metheny had little contact with his mother after joining the army. She said he simply drifted further and further away and believed drugs were the most terrible thing that could have happened to him. "It's a heartbreaking story," she concluded. As heinous as eating one's own murder victims is, feeding human remains to unsuspecting people may be even worse. This was the heinous crime Joe Metheny, a native of Baltimore, committed in the 1990s. Yes, if you needed an excuse to go vegan, this is it. Metheny was nicknamed Tiny in the 1990s, despite being 6'1", large-framed, and overweight. He had been drinking in bars, living in makeshift camps in South Baltimore with groups of homeless men, and spending roughly all his money on crack, heroin, cocaine, and other drugs. He did, however, work as a forklift operator, and was widely characterized as well-spoken, intelligent, and well-mannered. Metheny spent days searching for his son and girlfriend after they went missing. He looked under bridges and in halfway houses where she used to purchase drugs, but came up empty-handed. Joe eventually encountered 2 homeless men, who he suspected were withholding information about the whereabouts of his family from him. He killed them both with an axe he'd brought with him. Metheny was eventually arrested for these murders. Metheny was also tried for murder in a separate case in 1995, accused of murdering Randall Brewer, as well as Randy Piker, with an axe at a homeless tent city campsite beneath Baltimore's Hanover Street Bridge. There had been disagreements between opposing groups of homeless men, and Larry Amos was convicted of having stolen the murder weapon and using it to kill another homeless man, Everett Dowell. The bodies were discovered on the exact day that Dowell was killed, August 2nd, 1995. Amos was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, but pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was released after having to serve 1 year and 9 months out of the 8-year sentence. In July 1996, a jury concluded that there was inadequate evidence to convict Metheny of the murders of Piker and Brewer, but he later stated that he was guilty of those crimes. Joe didn't appear to be looking for vengeance. He was only interested in the excitement of killing. He even discovered his family's whereabouts, claiming, "I found out about 6 months later that she had moved on the other side of town with some asshole who had her selling her ass for drugs. They were arrested for drug possession, and my son was taken away from them due to child neglect and abuse." Unfortunately, Joe's desire for violence did not seem to be satisfied by this knowledge. Metheny murdered 39-year-old Kathy Ann Magaziner in 1994 and planted her corpse in a shallow grave near the factory where he worked. Her body had been there for over 2 years. Joe later claimed that he strangled her and that 6 months later, he dug up her skeleton, placed her head in a box, and threw it away. He then stabbed Kimberly Lynn Spicer to death with a knife in mid-November 1996. On December 8, 1996, he kidnapped Rita Kemper and tried to rape her. Prosecutors claim he shared illicit substances with Kemper in the trailer, in which he was living at the pallet factory. He ran after her, hit her, pulled her back into the trailer, then managed to pull down her pants and tried to rape her because she rejected having sexual relations with him. Kemper claimed he tried to murder her, telling her, "I'm going to kill you and bury you in the woods with the other girls." She managed to escape through a trailer window and fled to nearby police officers. Joe then asked a friend to assist him in burying Spicer's body, which he had been concealing at the factory site since having killed her a month before. On December 15, 1996, a friend reported it to the police, and Metheny was charged and arrested with her murder the same day. The owner of the business was arrested alongside Metheny as they were leaving a Christmas party and charged as an accessory due to the fact that they allegedly disposed of the evidence. He began admitting to other murders in addition to Spicer's. He led the cops to the shallow grave in which he had buried Magaziner's severed head. Although much of her skeleton was missing, police were able to recognize Magaziner based on dental records. According to police, Joe Metheny targeted young white sex workers who had been addicted to cocaine and heroin. The killings also included heinous sexual assaults. He was charged with the murder of Tony Lynn Ingracia, 28, but the charges were subsequently dismissed due to a lack of evidence. He also claimed to have murdered 3 other sex workers on Baltimore's Washington Boulevard, though there was no proof of most of those murders other than his statements. Joe also claimed to have thrown bodies into the Patapsco River, where they were never discovered. The Baltimore Sun reported in 1997 that it was unclear how credible his claims regarding the number of people he had killed were, despite the fact that he claimed to have killed up to 10. According to Joe's attorney, he is remorseful, and alcohol and drugs changed his individuality and made him act out in violent ways. Although the arresting officers expected a protest from a man as violent as Joe Metheny, they were astonished when he went peacefully and simply stated, "I'm a very sick person." When the police began questioning Metheny, the full extent of his crimes became clear. Metheny also disclosed some disturbing details about what he did with the bodies of his victims during his interview. He was transforming them into burgers in some cases. He said he would cut the meat up and put it in some Tupperware bowls, then put it in a freezer. "I opened up a little open pit beef stand. I had some real roast beef and pork sandwiches. They were very good. The taste of the human body is very similar to pork. If you mix it together, no one can tell the difference." Indeed, it appeared that nobody could tell the difference, or that no one could have imagined they'd been served human meat. It's unclear how many people ingested Metheny's burgers. So the next time you're riding down the road and you happen to see an open pit beef stand that you've never seen before, "Make sure you think about this story before you take a bite of that sandwich," he would later say in an interview. Metheny never expressed remorse for the atrocities that he committed. He claimed that the only thing he wished he had done differently was kill his ex-girlfriend, as well as the man that she fled with. At first, Joe Metheny was sentenced to death. However, the sentence was later reduced to life in prison. Metheny's body was discovered in his prison cell in 2017. That concludes the twisted story of Joe Metheny. Can you say you've had a hamburger from an open pit beef stand? What are your thoughts on the serial killer's motive? We would love to know. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.